Hey guys, it's Mike here. Oh, I just got to move myself into the center of the camera here. It's like the minions have gone to sleep, went to sleep ages ago, and I decided, hey, you know what? Let's go and check out Batman vs Superman when I got the chance to. Got myself one of those Odeon Cinema coupons. I'm I'm not gonna lie to anybody, right? In terms of what the reviews were saying, are they a little harsh? Not so much. The thing is, I can see where everyone's coming from in terms of what the movie was lacking, what worked, what didn't work. Now, let's basically go from the positives. The positives of this movie, of course, you have a very imposing, very darker Batman. Basically, very similar in tone to Zack Snyder's Batman in terms of, the Dark Knight trilogy that they've got going on. The only problem that I have with it is they, the one thing I don't tolerate in terms of Batman, because I'm kind of a Tim Burton-esque Batman fan, a fan of Batman animated series, fan of Batman after the fact, using guns. Batman using guns. He's used modified variations of guns to shoot batarangs and stuff, fair enough, but he's never actually used a proper gun. They get him to do that in this movie, and it kind of pisses me off a little bit. The other thing is the confrontation between Batman and Superman. It worked. It really, really did work in terms of the characters and what they were trying to portray. Superman, again, Cavill kind of has it down to a science now. So it's like, what his actions and reactions are. It was actually very interesting the way he was playing Clark, because you never really got to see too much of Clark from Man of Steel. So you got to see a little bit of that. Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman was amazing and very imposing when she was physically acting as the character. When she opened her mouth, she has this very weird Iranian accent going on. I no clue whatsoever as to who made that decision, why that decision was made, and why they think that would pass off. In certain scenes where it's kind of built up and overarched with like fight scenes and stuff going on, when she speaks, it's like you really got to listen, because her accent takes over too much and it doesn't help her in terms of the character. I'm not saying she's shit. I'm just saying that Wonder Woman, with her speaking, kind of lets down the character itself. And the problem is, if she's going to lead a Wonder Woman movie, she really needs to kind of step up her game a little bit and kind of resonate with the character a bit more, because I felt it felt a little flat. But when she was doing the action scenes and stuff, it was amazing. The kind of final confrontation and stuff like that worked really well as well. They kind of had some of the Dark Knight-esque elements to it, especially with the weapons Batman was using and the suit. Ben Affleck, again, as Bruce Wayne and Batman, there was nothing I can say that was shit on the character, because he did his job. I can understand why he felt a little let down when they were telling him that the reviews were bad for the movie, because he really put his heart and soul. He left everything in the character and brought his own variation of who Batman is into that character, so you could see it. I liked the fact that they kind of continued on from Man of Steel, so you saw the kind of ramifications of what happened between Superman and Zod. That was a good thing. It was a great thing to kind of bring on that and bring to that whole point of disillusion. The problem is, kind of down to the disappointing fact of this movie, was they didn't know where to go with it. They first started this whole Senate hearing of, oh, is he a good man? Is he a bad man? Is he anything? Is he a bag of chips? What is he? They play towards that, but then they kind of cut away and try to build up Batman's side of the story. Then they cut away and try to add a little bit of Wonder Woman in them. And they cut away and try to build up Lex Luthor, but they never brought up his intentions. So the movie had some great moments as well. It looked beautiful. And that's one thing I would give Zack Snyder credit for. He can set up shots. He can make it look amazing as a director. He can encapsulate the scene and draw you into it. The problem being is that the writing of this movie was so shit that it kind of left you in a situation where you were like conflicted in a sense. You were like, where am I coming out from this? Where do I go? What part of this can I kind of grasp and draw positives or negatives to it? So as you can see, you've got a lot of people who quickly negate the movie, and a lot of people who put the positive to the movie and kind of fanboy it up in a sense. So you have that. One of my major issues with this movie in terms of execution have to be the pacing. Sometimes you had long drawn out scenes where you had a lot of dialoguing, and it was very monotonous because of the fact where it would go from those drawn out scenes to the big action sequences rather quickly. And then they'll get the action scenes out of the way and then back to the long drawn out scenes again. And because it was so dark and because the tone was so dark in terms of the way that they were trying to present it, it really left it just sitting there thinking, oh God, I want to throttle myself. You know, it takes you right out of the scene and you really don't know what to do with it. The whole, you know, the other thing where you had Zack Snyder going about the CIA agents, Jimmy Olsen, fuck off. Really, just fuck off. You tried to find a loophole to push that kind of criteria out, but I guarantee you if the fans harp on enough, you're going to bring a Jimmy Olsen in. That guy wasn't Jimmy Olsen. He was some CIA agent who was randomly there to be disposed of, to kind of overemphasize that Lois was in a sense of danger, in a sense. It did nothing. You really got to also see a little bit of a story of, you know, another moment in a sense of Clark and Lois's, you know, relationship, and how her understanding of Superman and what it is to kind of be, in a sense, a variation of normal. Again, with his mother, she was kind of shoehorned in there in the last minute as well, to kind of bring out one little line in the movie. I'm not going to tell you what that line is. I'm going to let you decipher it for yourself, because I'm trying to leave this like kind of spoiler free. The kind of the weaponry and stuff that Batman uses, it's great. You know, it was really nice, very techy, exactly what you can expect of. This Batman doesn't rely too much on Lucius Fox. He's more of his own guy, and you could see it. Bruce Wayne and Batman are very intertwined in a sense as well. What can I say in terms of the other bad elements that really annoyed me? Jesse Eisenberg. He is not Lex Luthor. He is not. He's Jesse Eisenberg trying to be the Joker who's trying to be Lex Luthor. And a lot of people can kind of compare him to the Joker because he's literally just that nutty tech genius kind of a guy who has no motivation. They did nothing to build his character up or to actually get us to understand who he is, because he had no backstory. There was nothing in it. I think there was a few lines of him talking about his uncle, and that was it. But the most of it, and also his father, of course, but most of it was just throwaway stuff. You had no grasp, no understanding of who the character is. There were nothing that was redeemable about him. It was kind of like, I'm just going to go and do this mad shit because, you know, whatever. And there was kind of a hint to that he was being led to do that by Darkseid, but at the same level, it was like, really, why? The Flash didn't impress me. Ezra Miller had this whole kind of emo chic thing going on. If you think, you know, Grant Gustin couldn't pull that off, dude, you are fucking off your rocker, Zack Snyder. Seriously. Grant Gustin would fit the role better than Ezra Miller has fit in the role. Again, I am going to wait and see to see whether the Justice League, you know, to kind of eat my comments in a sense or not. But he didn't really do anything for me in the short time he was there. He was kind of shoehorned in there with Cyborg and with Aquaman to kind of build this whole Justice League faction. And again, truthfully, I think if they stuck to a proper story, stuck to the pacing, added the action sequences in there, and allowed the movie to kind of organically build, in a sense, because you wanted to kind of see who Clark was and who Bruce was, and intertwine their lives together as these two like focal characters meeting and doing something to kind of build their tension, but then also their respect for one another. And it did nothing to do that. The biggest problem as well with this movie is it's forgettable. It does nothing to kind of make you sit there and go, you know, this is going to be an amazing movie. It has that whole Age of Ultron kind of feel to it, where they shoved everything in the same place in hopes that they could get all this stuff done. And if I was a writer, and this is the thing, I don't really want to shit on the writers because of the bad writing, but I can see why that happened. Because you had DC kind of probably on their backs going, we want this in, we want this in, we want this in, we want this in, and Warner Brothers coming in going, we want this in, we want this in, we want this in, we want this in. And because you have a limited time to do it, you can't really tell a proper story from it. And that's the problem. I think they should look a lot more to the animated movies and think, hey, you know, this is what we can accomplish. Maybe we can add some elements in that to our mainstream movies. It doesn't have to, you know, be the most amazing material, but it has to be coherent. You have to understand why it works, why it doesn't work, and also why the characters are at this moment, you know, because you have the beginning, the middle, and the end of storytelling. It's basic storytelling. You start from the beginning as to what has happened, which is like the whole thing in Man of Steel. Then you have the middle as to, okay, this is what the event that they're going to be leading into. And then you have the end, which is the climax of the movie. This is where the climax is going to happen. And the problem is, as an actor, I would probably sit there and go to them, what's my motivation? Especially if I was Jesse Eisenberg. With Bruce Wayne, you could see a little bit of it, but you needed a bit more motivation as to see why he was doing what he was doing. And the same goes for Superman as to what was his motivation. Why was he not listening to authority? Why was he shunning everybody and saying, I do what the fuck I want? If you're going to go in that direction, you need to understand why they were doing this, what their methods were. Lois Lane had her own little story arc in there as well. And again, it kind of, it didn't piss me off, but at the sense it was like time that could have been used to these two. And I think the focal point of this movie, and the thing is, my whole anticipation for this movie was hyped, you know. The focal point of this movie should have been these two characters, these two polarizing figures, and the reason why they're fighting. And the problem was, they tried to give them that reason, with Lex being that focal point, but it didn't work. And the reason why it didn't work, because he didn't have any understanding of why he was doing what he was doing, let alone why he was leading these two to do what they were doing. So it didn't help, you know. And that was kind of the main problem. With every single Lex Luthor out there, even Gene Hackman's Lex, even you know, in Superman Returns, oh God, what was his name? That will come to me. Even when he portrayed Lex, you understood their motivations as to why they were doing what they were doing. Maybe the hammy motivations, but you understood them. In the cartoon, the animated series, in Justice League, you knew what Lex was doing. In the animated movies, you knew what Lex was doing, what his motivations were. This you didn't. And you know, part of it I blame Jesse Eisenberg for as an actor. He really didn't research the character, in my opinion. He just went, I'm going to play him like this. Or someone told me to play him like this. I'm just going to be standing there all bubbly and stuff and act like a complete and utter psychopath. And it only works for some people. It doesn't work for Lex. And the problem is, when you have such an ingrained fan base of DC comics, you know, of the Superman arcs and the Batman arcs, excuse me, you would actually understand the motivations behind those characters. But that's pretty much it, guys. I'll try to keep it spoiler free. I do apologize if I let anything out of the bag and that people are disappointed in. If you want me to rate this movie, which I really wouldn't, I would probably give it an honest 5 out of 10. And that's the truth. And, you know, a lot of people are giving it 7. I was giving it a 6. The presentation is lovely. The score is amazing. The characters, in terms of the acting ability, a lot of the main characters worked, but a lot of it didn't. And the one thing that let me down was, when I go to see a movie, I want to have my brain switched off and my total focus and attention at that movie. This didn't do it. It didn't piss me off as much as Godzilla did, but it got me to a point where I just sat there and was like, why am I here? If I had a TV and I was watching that movie on, I'd wait, like pausing it every 5 minutes to go and do something else. And that's not the way that you want to have your presentation of the big kind of movie that elopes and contains this entire universe. This is kind of what they hold their hopes on. But in the end, you've got my money, just like you've got everybody else's DC, so it really doesn't matter. But I really do hope you learn from your lesson, because if you don't, you're kind of going to be in a bit of a pickle when it comes to the next movie, because there's only so many times you can feed people shit before they get tired of it. Sorry, guys. I really did want to like this. Oh, excuse me. Really did want to like this movie, but it just didn't happen. Anyway, I'm off to bed. Have a lovely night. And I'll see you again at the movies, guys. Bye.